Let's see what we get with the next group. So 30 to 21, starting at 30, Mike Evans, Quenton Nelson, Richard Sherman, Jamal Adams, Von Miller, TJ Watt, Ezekiel Elliott, Cameron Jordan, Tyreek Hill, and then Dalvin Cook. I think the one guy who stands out for me here is Dalvin Cook because he hasn't played a full season. He just hasn't lasted a whole year. So, Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I would fire this Dalvin Cook at 21. The old phrase, fire that into the sun. I am not a fan of Dalvin Cook being that high. I just don't trust his durability at all. If there's one thing I hate, it's players that don't have durability, especially when they're trying to sign big contracts. Not that I root against players getting big contracts, but I just always get worried when they sign big extensions because we see the Todd Gurley stuff happen a lot. I like a lot of these players in these tiers. I think I would probably rank Quentin Nelson higher. He is the highest offensive lineman on this list at 29, which is ridiculous. The best offensive linemen in the league are complete game changers. Like you don't hear about them, but you're not supposed to. If you hear about an offensive lineman, it's usually, oh, he's got a penalty. Like Quentin Nelson is like super game changer for the Colts, and Philip Rivers is going to reap the benefits of that. So he's a top 15 player for me. Jamal Adams cracks my top 20 probably. And I think I'm okay with the rest of them being ranked where they are. I like I like TJ Watt a lot. I just tend to like the players the Steelers have on defense because of what they were able to do last year, but that may be recency bias a bit. So I think my big things are like drop Cook a whole lot, move Nelson up a whole lot, and move Adams up maybe 10 or so spots. And then I think I'd be more okay with this, but I don't think this is the worst part of the list by any stretch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. To me, Nelson is a top 10 player in the NFL, and the fact that he's not, I think if you're gonna have one, you got to have at least one lineman. And other than quarterback, you could argue that offensive line is like the number one thing that will determine if you're a championship team. I mean, it's remarkable to me that it's underrated by guys that play in the NFL too. Like you would think, fans doing this. I expect fans to do that. I don't expect guys in the NFL to underrate linemen. So just odd to me that linemen are not getting the love here. To me, Nelson is a top 10 player in the NFL. TJ Watt, he felt a little high at 25. I mean, not terrible. Felt a little high to me. Von Miller at 26 feels a little high to me, compared to where he was a couple years ago, where he was a top 10 player, but not egregious. Richard Sherman at 28 feels a little high, not egregious. But I think generally, to me, the guys I'd be moving up the linemen generally, and Nelson on the top of that list. Tyreek Hill also, in my mind, I'm biased. I think he's just my favorite player on the field. Of course, not off the field, but just on the field, he might be my favorite player in the NFL. Just to watch. I'm rewatching the 2019 season right now, and the guy is just, even when he's injured, he demands so much attention. Even when he's not 100%, he is so quick. He's so fun to watch. To me, if there's a receiver you're going to push up, I mean, I think I'd put him higher than 22.
It'd be odd if you said he's your favorite player off the field. It'd be very weird. I wonder, I really would like to see a top 100 list compiled by the coaches and the GMs. It would be so radically different. Like we would definitely see offensive linemen in the top 10, definitely top 15. But yeah, they are underrated. And I've always said the three things the team absolutely needs is the franchise quarterback. They need to protect the quarterback, and they need to get to the other quarterback. And that's not really reflected on this list. All right, let's get to 20 through 11. 20, Deshaun Watson. 19, Khalil Mack. 18, Travis Kelce. 17, Nick Bosa. 16, Aaron Rodgers. 15, Chandler Jones. 14, Tom Brady. 13, Bobby Wagner. 12, Drew Brees. 11, Julio Jones. I don't have like a major problem with anything here. Like maybe Drew Brees is a little high given his age. You could say the same thing about Tom Brady, but he's the GOAT and he's super determined this year. So I would put Brady ahead of Brees. Maybe Travis Kelce a little too high. Like Kelce posts great stats all the time, but he's entering his 30s now. So there might be a decline. So I wouldn't put Kelce ahead of some of the top offensive linemen. So Jacob, what do you think?
I would shake up the quarterback rankings here, probably put Deshaun Watson ahead of Brady and then have Brees come after that. I think that just protects against the whole, like, if Brady or Brees declines in their older age, in the NFL, then we have that. But everything else kind of checks out to me. All these guys feel like top 20 player. I get your point about Kelce. I may downgrade him a bit. See him as kind of a top 30 player. I don't have a huge issue with him at 18, but I would probably take some of the defenders we saw in the previous tier above him, like the Jamal Adamses of the world, and definitely Quentin Nelson would be above him. But yeah, of this 10-man tier, though, I think 9 of 10 belong in this range. So that sits well with me.
Yeah, I agree. I think we get to this point where it feels like you got most of the right guys, but maybe the order would be, I would argue, maybe slightly differently. Drew Brees, man, the arm is the arm is not there. I mean, I'm watching 2019 again. The guy's and I don't think I realized that his arm strength has completely fallen off now because he's such a great decision maker and he's such an accurate passer. Because he's so smart, the team hasn't missed a beat. But he clearly is not being able to push the ball down the field like he once could. It is clearly not there. And defending that Saints offense, I have not gone back and watched the playoff game yet when they lost in the playoffs. Obviously, I'm looking forward to watching that because I'm assuming how the Vikings played him was they just you two over the top and you don't let them go. You don't let him do anything, and now you have to matriculate the ball. And maybe that's just not enough. He doesn't have the firepower to pull that off now. Drew Brees to me does not belong in this list anymore. And I love Drew Brees, but I don't think he belongs here. Tom Brady's probably a little higher than he should be, but you give him the respect because of who he is and what he's accomplished. So maybe he's always a little overrated to some extent, in his 40s beyond. So he probably plays till he's like 55. Who knows? But the one that's egregious to me here is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is a top 7 player in the NFL. In my mind, I have him 3rd at quarterback overall, and I have him. I think I would put him 7th on my list. 20 is an absolute disrespect, and I think people don't realize how good he is. Think about what he's doing with an absolute ridiculous man at head coach. I mean, the guy is so good. He can do everything. 20 is a disrespect in my opinion.
I think ridiculous man is a good way to describe Bill O'Brien for sure. With Drew Brees is interesting because, yeah, like I said, I think he's too high here, but he wasn't healthy last year. Remember, he had the thumb injury, so I wonder if that really impacted him in the second half of the year when he came back, including the playoff game. So I'm curious to see if his arm strength improves a little bit next year, but then again, it could just fall off. Before we move on to the top 10, Jacob, your dad says Brady's too high, so I think you need to address that.
Yeah, I think if you're basing it solely off of how the play was last season, I think you could argue that Brady should be a little bit lower, but I think my dad's just trying to be controversial because my extended family and fantasy league are a lot. We have a ton of Tom Brady fans in there, so I think he's poking fun at them. But when you're playing with a one-armed Julian Edelman, injured Mohamed Sanu, who else was there? N'Keal Harry, who can't separate, and then who's your top tight end last year? Matt the Boss Lacoste. Yeah, I call him the boss, but he's not very good. So, yeah, Brady had no weapons. He's in Tampa Bay. He should be better off this time around. Circling back to Drew Brees, I think you guys both bring up good points about that. It'll be interesting to see this year if we see Brees go back to that, having enough arm strength, or if it's kind of like a Peyton Manning farewell year where his arm strength was just gone, but the Saints have a team that's good enough to, potentially get to the Super Bowl around him. So I'm looking forward to see how that plays out, especially with Brady's Bucks in the league. 2 legendary quarterbacks in the same division. Yeah, and there it is. My dad's a contrarian. That's what he's saying.
I'm always a fan of being contrarian. I think that gives you an edge in the markets and sports betting. So I'm definitely on board with that. But then I think there's a saying that says don't ever be too contrarian because you could get in trouble. And I think fading Tom Brady is just asking for trouble. I think he's good. I think he's going to be super determined this year. I'm super excited to see him with the Buccaneers.